I should have known something was wrong the moment the dog started barking at her. Bruno, he's a rescue, usually gentle, loyal, doesn't make a sound unless he senses something off. But the last 2 months, every time she came home, he'd stand stiff near the hallway and growl low, almost confused, like he recognized her face but not her scent. I chalked it up to his nerves. But now I wonder if he saw something before I did. She started bringing home that green smoothie crap she used to mock, talking about gut health and mindfulness like she'd just come out of a TED Talk. She hated that stuff. Used to say if it tastes like lawnmower juice, it belongs in the compost. Suddenly it was all she drank. I'd ask what changed and she'd just grin and say, growth. Thursday night. That's when it really started unraveling. She told me she was going out to see an old friend from college. I didn't even blink. I said, cool, tell Mia I said hi, because Mia was the only college friend she kept in touch with. She didn't correct me. Just nodded vaguely, picked up her purse and left in a hurry. Something about how she closed the door behind her, sharp. Final. No usual love you. Not even a fake one. I sat down with my laptop and a beer. Opened Netflix. Couldn't even focus. Something felt off. That kind of off where your body knows before your brain catches up. I clicked into our family shared email. We never used it much. Only for bills and stuff. But it was still synced on my desktop, buried under spam. There it was. An automatic reservation confirmation from a sushi place in the city. Table for 2. Name, Logan M. Not her name. Not mine. Reservation made with her email, not even trying to hide it. But sent to the shared inbox like she just forgot we still used it. A slip. A crack. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys and drove. The restaurant wasn't far. She told me she was heading the other way, but here she was 15 minutes from home, dressed in that silky maroon dress I hadn't seen in months. I parked across the street. Watched. And then I saw him. Tall. Clean cut. Early 40s maybe. Navy blazer. Smug posture. He held the door open for her. She walked in laughing, not that quiet polite laugh she gives me now, but the full one. The one she used to have with me years ago, before growth and smoothies and lies. I didn't go inside. I didn't make a scene. Not yet. I waited. Waited an hour and 15 minutes in that parking lot, engine off, lights off. My hands were shaking, not from rage but from something colder. Betrayal, maybe? Not the theatrical kind. The kind that settles into your bones. They came out. She was touching his arm. Not the kind of touch you give a friend. The kind that says, I know you. Then she did something I'll never forget. She leaned in, kissed his cheek, then looked around, eyes darting, scanning. She didn't see me. She smiled, whispered something into his ear. They split directions. She walked down the block and called a rideshare. I followed it home. She came through the door like nothing had happened. Tossed her purse on the chair, kicked off her heels, and said, you wouldn't believe how boring it was. I stood in the kitchen. Asked her, where do you eat? She said, Mexican. Mia still loves those tacos from Diego's. I stared at her. Quiet. Then I said, you sure it wasn't sushi? She froze. Not a twitch. Not a blink. But her throat tightened. I stepped forward and opened the laptop on the counter. Showed her the email. And for a moment, just one damn moment, I thought she'd crumble. Apologize. Cry. Anything. Instead, she smirked. Smirked. Then she said, so what? You're checking up on me now. I stared at her, stunned. And she added, if you'd paid this much attention 2 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have needed dinner. I didn't answer her. I couldn't. There's no manual for what you're supposed to do when the person you built your life with looks you in the face and essentially says, yeah, I'm lying. And what are you going to do about it? My hands weren't shaking anymore. Something colder had settled over me. A kind of stillness, like my brain had stopped processing it as real. She walked past me like we hadn't just crossed some invisible line. Like the tension wasn't so thick I could bite into it. Poured herself a glass of water. Took a sip. Turned back and said, look, don't make this dramatic, okay? It's not what you think. I asked, then what is it? She rolled her eyes. It's just dinner. He's a client. We met through work. It wasn't a date. No client calls you baby when he's holding the door open. Her head jerked up. Yeah. I said it. She squinted at me. You were there. I didn't flinch. Saw the whole thing. She set the glass down. Carefully. Like she was trying not to let it slip. So now you're stalking me. There it was again. The switch. turning it all around. She was trying to drag me into some guilt-trip trench like I had violated her trust. I was being lied to, not stalking. Don't play semantics. She laughed once, short, sharp, mean. You really think I need your permission to eat with someone? You've barely looked at me in months. You come home, crack a beer, and stare at the TV like a ghost. Maybe I wanted to feel like a woman again. That one cut deep. Not because it was true. Because it was rehearsed. Like she'd been storing that line in her back pocket waiting to throw it. I didn't answer. Just walked over to the kitchen drawer, pulled it open, grabbed her keys. Tossed them on the table. You can go back to feeling like a woman somewhere else tonight. She didn't move. Just crossed her arms. Oh, please. Stop acting like a martyr. You knew this wasn't working. No, I said. I knew we were drifting. I didn't know you were diving into other people's arms while lying about it. She looked at me for a long second. Then something changed in her face, like she dropped the mask entirely. Her voice went flat. You think I owe you a confession just because you caught me checking out? Checking out. I repeated. You think this is a hotel? She walked up to me then, close enough I could see the shimmer of her mascara, smell that expensive perfume she never wore for me anymore. You want the truth? She whispered. I didn't answer. Just nodded once. She leaned in a fraction closer. I was bored. You got boring. You talk about drywall and water pressure like it's poetry. Logan listens. Logan's clean. Logan doesn't snore like a tractor. And then she said it. Worthless? Maybe. Honest? At least I never lied about who I am. I don't remember grabbing the plate. I didn't throw it. I just held it in my hand tight like it might keep me from breaking something else. My world, maybe? She looked at it. Looked at me. Go ahead, she said. Finish the performance. Instead, I placed it on the counter. Carefully. And I walked out. Got in my truck. Drove nowhere in particular. Ended up at a 24-hour gas station off the highway. Sat in the parking lot. Watched a group of teenagers try to buy energy drinks and fail miserably at flirting with the cashier. The world kept turning. When I finally looked at my phone, I had 3 texts from her. You need to grow up. Come home. We need to talk like adults. Or don't. I don't care. I stared at those words for a long time. I wanted to feel anger. I wanted to scream. Break something. Instead, I felt something worse. I felt numb. I came back at 2:47 a.m. The digital clock in the truck glowed like a scar I couldn't stop staring at. The house was dark, quiet. No lights on. No TV flickering through the living room window. For a second, I let myself believe maybe she'd gone. Maybe the universe had done me one small favor. She hadn't. She was sitting on the couch. Same maroon dress, but barefoot now. Legs curled up under her like nothing had happened. Her phone was in her hand. Her face was lit up by it, the way people look when they're deep in a text conversation that matters. She didn't look up when I walked in. Just said, took you long enough. I didn't speak. Closed the door behind me. Set my keys down quietly. She kept typing for another few seconds before tossing the phone on the cushion beside her. Let me guess, she said. You went to sit in your truck and feel sorry for yourself. I ignored it. Walked to the kitchen. Poured water. Needed something to hold. Something to do that didn't involve screaming. She got up and followed me. You know, she said, you keep acting like you're the one who's been wronged, but tell me this, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Really doing? I turned to her slowly. Is this where you try to turn infidelity into self-care? She scoffed. Oh, so now we're using big words. Infidelity. What, did you Google how to process betrayal? I stared at her for a beat. No. I lived it. That shut her up for a second. But only a second. Then she smiled. Logan listens. That's it. That's what this is. He listens and you assume. You assume I'll always be here, waiting for you to notice me. I walked past her. Sat down at the dining table. My hands felt heavy. She hovered in the doorway like she couldn't decide whether to leave or dig deeper. You want the full truth, she said. I nodded. Quiet. Tired. She stepped forward, arms crossed. It wasn't just dinner. I didn't just meet him. We've been talking for months. Met him at a work conference. And no, it wasn't just talk. He made me feel alive again. I looked up. And this time I didn't flinch. You feel alive when you lie to the person who trusted you the most? She blinked. Don't make this dramatic. I stood. I'm not making this dramatic. I'm making this clear. You've been cheating. You've been lying. And worst of all, you've been pretending like you're the victim here. She tilted her head. So what? You want me to cry now? Beg? Is that what would make you feel better? No, I said. What would make me feel better is honesty. Just once. She exhaled, walked over to the table, picked up a napkin and started folding it. Like it mattered. Fine, she said. You want honest? Here's honest. I don't think I ever stopped wanting more. Even when we were good. Even when you tried. There was always something missing. And maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm broken. But I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like this marriage didn't die a long time ago. Silence. The kind that feels loud. Then she added, you just didn't notice the funeral. I stared at her, feeling something inside me start to calcify. She didn't look sorry. She looked relieved. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a slip. This was a choice. Conscious one. And I'd been asleep at the wheel while she drove us into the ditch that night, after she went to bed. Like nothing had happened. Like betrayal could be shrugged off with a blanket and a deep sigh. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun began bleeding through the blinds. There was this weird silence in the house. Not peaceful. Not even angry. Just hollow. Like the walls had absorbed everything good we ever were and spat it back out in pieces. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I watched the light creep over the cabinets and land on the fridge where her stupid vision board hung. Pictures of beaches, quotes about manifesting, a printout of her gym class schedule. I stared at the word abundance written in gold Sharpie. Felt like a joke. I got up, took the board down, shoved it in the drawer with old batteries and broken pens. Then I opened my laptop. If she wanted out, I'd give her the door. But not before making damn sure I wasn't the one left standing in the rubble while she skipped off into Logan's arms with my money, my peace, and her Instagram-ready smile. I needed to know what I was walking into. I started digging. Bank statements. Location history. Cloud backups. I had access to everything. We'd built a life too intertwined. She hadn't thought to change the passwords. What I found made my stomach turn. Charges for hotels not in our city, not even close. 2 towns over. Always during her work trips. A couple charges from high-end boutiques. She doesn't even shop boutique. And then the one that really hit me, 2 tickets to a weekend retreat. A couple's wellness reset. Booked a month ago. 2 tickets. My name wasn't on it. That wasn't the part that stung most. The sting came when I saw the dates. That was the same weekend she told me her mother was in the hospital. She even made me send flowers. She lied so easily. It was like she didn't even register me as a real person anymore. Just a background character in her main story. That morning, when she finally dragged herself out of bed, she came into the kitchen like nothing had changed. She was in one of my old hoodies, smiling, said, "Morning. You sleep okay?" I didn't answer, just turned my screen toward her. She froze mid-pour over her coffee mug. She saw the hotel receipts first, then the retreat, then the photo. Yeah, there was a photo from the retreat website. 2 people in the background walking hand in hand. It was blurry, but not that blurry. His watch, her hair. She looked at me, cold, flat. "You're really going through my stuff now?" "No," I said. "I'm going through our stuff. Because while you were out there playing the spiritual soulmate game, I was here, holding together what you didn't even care to fix." She looked down at the screen again. For once, she didn't have a clever line. No sarcastic spin. Just silence. Then she said, "So now what? You gonna kick me out?" "No," I said. "I'm going to let you stay. I want you here for what happens next." She blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" "I mean, I'm not reacting anymore. I'm responding. And while you've been busy building a new story, I've been building an ending." She laughed once. Nervous. "You're bluffing." "I'm not." And I wasn't. That day, I called a lawyer. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to break things. I was going to dismantle her story one piece at a time. Quietly. Efficiently. Truthfully. Let her be the mess. I was done cleaning up. By Monday, I had everything. Not bits. Not maybes. Everything. The lawyer, a friend of my brother's, moved fast. We met at this dull little office in a strip mall behind a dry cleaner. Nothing fancy, which I liked. He asked questions I wasn't ready to answer, not out loud. But I did. Because that's what it takes. Truth. Not the polished, passive-aggressive kind she fed me for months. Real, bare-bone truth. The marriage was joint property. The house, my truck, her car, the savings account, 50-50. Unless I could prove misconduct that affected our shared assets. So I showed him the retreat confirmation. Then the hotel charges. Then the text backups. Yeah, I had the texts now. The cloud had synced a goldmine of screenshots and messages she forgot existed. She'd been logged into our shared iCloud on her tablet. That's where I found the backup files. One conversation stuck out, the one from the night I had been in bed with the flu and she told me she was at girls' wine night. She had texted him, "If I hear him cough one more time, I swear I'm going to end him in his sleep." I miss your bed. That one hit hard. But I saved it. I saved all of it. Tuesday morning, she was on a Zoom call in the living room, pretending to be engaged in a marketing discussion while twirling her hair and sipping espresso from her favorite mug, the one I got her on our 5th anniversary. It had chipped last year. She made me glue it back together like it was some symbol of endurance. I watched her from the hallway, thinking how strange it is to watch someone lie so smoothly. How alien she felt in our home. When her call ended, I stepped into the room. "We need to talk." She groaned, still facing her screen. "God, are we seriously doing this again?" I didn't respond. I placed a folder on the coffee table. She looked down at it like it might explode. "What is that?" "Everything." She flipped it open. First page, printout of the hotel bookings. Second, screenshots. Third, credit card statements. Fourth, retreat confirmation. Fifth, the texts. I highlighted the worst ones. She didn't move for a while. Eye scanning. Then she said, without looking up, "You really went through all this trouble to hurt me?" "No," I said. "I went through all this trouble to stop you from hurting me again." Her hands trembled as she turned the pages. Not fear. Anger. Like, how dare I turn on the light while she was dancing in the dark. Then she did something I didn't expect. She started clapping. A slow, sarcastic clap. "Wow. You dug through my life like some forensic bloodhound and still couldn't find a reason why you lost me." I didn't react. That made her angrier. She stood up, folder in hand, waving it like a weapon. This is your gotcha? Congratulations. You found proof I was miserable." "You weren't miserable," I said. "You were greedy." "Same thing," she snapped. "No," I said. "It's not. Miserable people try. Greedy people lie." That shut her up. She tossed the folder on the couch like it disgusted her. Then she asked, "So what now? You want to ruin me?" "No," I said. "You already did that to yourself. I'm just making it official." She stared at me, her mouth open like she wanted to say something clever, something devastating. But there was nothing left to say. I walked past her, calm, slow. And right before I reached the stairs, I turned back. "I spoke to a lawyer. I have everything I need. I'm not fighting for you anymore. I'm fighting for the life you tried to burn while smiling in my face." She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "No more speeches," I said. "You already said enough." Upstairs, I heard her throw something. Probably the mug. Didn't even flinch, the mug shattered. That much I expected. What I didn't expect was what came next. Not the apology. Not the breakdown. No, she went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't signal surrender, it signals calculation. By the next afternoon, she was back to her routine like we hadn't just declared emotional nuclear war. Yoga at 10. Acai bowl at noon. Passive-aggressive silence between. The air in the house felt like it was waiting for a storm to hit. It hit at 3:14 p.m. in the form of a phone call. From my mother. She was breathless, anxious. "Jake," she said, "why is she saying you've become unstable?" My spine stiffened. "What?" "She called me," my mother said. "Told me she was scared. Said you've been going through her things. Following her. Yelling at her at night." My jaw clenched. "She told you that?" "She sounded scared, honey. Is everything okay?" I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, "She's trying to rewrite the story." After I hung up, I went downstairs. She was in the backyard, lounging, sunglasses on, phone in hand, sunbathing like she hadn't just lit a match under my reputation. I stepped onto the deck. Really? I asked. My mother. She lifted her sunglasses. Didn't even flinch. She was going to find out eventually, she said. So I thought I'd make sure she got the version that hurts less. Less for who? For everyone, she said with a smug smile. Jake, if this turns into a war, I'm not walking away without a win. I laughed once. Dry. Bitter. You think this is about winning? Of course it is, she said. What do you think divorces are? Therapy? Closure? No. They're chess. And you just gave me your queen. I stared at her. For the first time, I realized how far gone she really was. This wasn't love twisted by resentment. This wasn't pain turning sour. This was strategy. Cold-blooded. No regret. No shame. You know what the difference between us is? I said. I'm still standing on what's real. You're drowning in what's convenient. She stood up, walked toward me with that half-step sway she always used when she wanted control of a room. You want to expose me, she said. Fine. But remember, people believe the one who cries first. Then she turned and walked past me into the house. I stood there, hands curled, the sun burning through the back of my shirt, the taste of betrayal sharper than ever. That night, I got a call from my brother. She'd contacted him too. Told him I'd changed. That I was obsessed with her whereabouts. That she was afraid. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. Instead, I invited him over. I showed him the folder. I showed him the messages. His face turned stone. He didn't say much, just nodded slowly and said, Damn. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said, You need to end this. Not tomorrow. Now. So I did something I hadn't planned yet. I sent an email to Logan. Subject line, Since you're in love with her honesty. Attached. The folder. I clicked send. Then I deleted it from my sent box. And I waited. The reply came fast. Too fast. 4 hours and 11 minutes after I hit send. Subject line, We should talk. No greeting. No pleasantries. Just that cold line followed by a phone number. I stared at it for a minute, debating if this was bait. Maybe she got to him first. Maybe he wanted to play mediator or worse, make himself feel like the bigger man. I didn't care. I dialed anyway. He picked up on the second ring. Jake. Yeah. Pause. A long one. I didn't know, he said. I stayed silent. Let him talk. I swear to you, I didn't know she was married. She told me she was separated. Said the house was in her name. That you'd already moved out. Still, I said nothing. I didn't believe her at first, he added. She was intense. But she made it seem like you were unstable. Controlling. Said you'd show up and make scenes, that you were dangerous. There it was again. That same rehearsed script she'd fed my mother, my brother, probably her yoga instructor too. Paint me as the storm so she could look like the survivor. He went on. I'm not proud of what I did. But if it means anything, I'm done. I blocked her number before I emailed you back. Why? I asked. She sent me a voice memo last night, he said. Told me you were threatening her. That you'd come after both of us. I didn't even know your name until I got that folder. But the voice she used in that message. He paused. It wasn't scared. It was rehearsed. I could almost hear him shaking his head through the phone. She scares me, Jake. And I barely know her. I didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything, really. Just hung up. And walked downstairs. She was in the kitchen, humming. Making some salad she'd pretend to enjoy and then forget in the fridge for 3 days. Still dressed like she lived in a lifestyle blog. I leaned against the wall and said, Logan's out. She stopped slicing. I watched the back of her neck stiffen. She didn't turn. Just said, excuse me. You heard me, I said. He knows everything now. Slowly, she turned. The knife still in her hand. You're really doing this, she said, eyes narrow. I'm not doing anything, I replied. You did this. You don't get to play victim in the house you burned down. She stepped toward me. The knife clinked against the counter as she set it down. You think you're clever, she said. You think exposing me makes you the hero? No, I said. It just makes me free. Her lips parted, a sharp comeback probably halfway formed, but she hesitated. There was a flicker in her expression. Not regret. Not pain. Something else. Fear. Not because of me. Because control was slipping. And control was her oxygen. You want to be free? She hissed. Then be free. But don't expect me to sit here while you assassinate my character. I shrugged. I don't need to. You're doing a fine job yourself. She stormed out of the kitchen, heels, yes, heels in her own damn house, slamming against the floor. A few minutes later, I heard drawers being pulled, bags zipping. She was packing. Or pretending to. I didn't go after her. I went back upstairs, closed the door, and pulled out the next folder. The one with the account closures, the title transfer forms, the asset freeze authorization. She wanted war? She underestimated who she declared it on. She didn't leave that night. She slammed things, sure. Tossed shoes into bags like she was filming some melodramatic exit scene. But she never made it to the door. She waited. Waited for me to chase her, to argue, to plead, to give her something, anything to work with. But I didn't. I heard her pacing the hallway around midnight. Heard the soft thud of her bag hitting the floor. She wanted a fight. I gave her silence. The next morning, she was back in the kitchen like nothing happened. French pressing coffee, wearing one of my old flannel shirts like she hadn't been minutes away from leaving. She sat across from me, calm, composed, smug. Then she said, I've decided to stay. I didn't even blink. I talked to a lawyer last night, she went on. He said I have a right to the house until the divorce is finalized. And until then, I'll be here. Don't like it? Take it up with the courts. I nodded slowly. I figured you'd try that. Her smile faltered just slightly. Try what? I pulled out another document. Slid it across the table. Her name already printed on it. What's this? She asked. Voluntary partition agreement, I said. Signed by both parties, it allows us to divide living spaces until court proceedings begin. It's legal. Enforceable. You stay on your side. I stay on mine. You violate it? I called the sheriff. She stared at the paper. Then at me. You really went this far? I'm just getting started. She shoved the paper away. You think paperwork is going to protect you from me? No, I said. But it's going to expose you when you try to twist this into something it's not. She stood. You know what your problem is? You think being quiet makes you righteous. But it just makes you a coward. No, I said again. Calm. Steady. It makes me dangerous to people who lie for a living. That was the crack. Her face twitched. Eyes darted. The reality started sinking in. This wasn't her playground anymore. No one was clapping. No one was buying the act. Her audience was shrinking, and I was no longer a captive. Then, just when I thought she'd retreat, she smiled. You think you've cornered me? She whispered. You think Logan leaving your little folder, this paper, means you've won? I don't need to win, I said. I just need to make sure you never get the chance to rewrite this. And then came the move I should have seen coming. That afternoon, I got a call from HR. At my job. She filed a report. Said she was afraid for her safety and that I had anger issues she feared could carry into the workplace. She claimed I'd become volatile. Erratic. Emotionally unstable. I sat in the manager's office as they read the report, trying not to laugh. My boss knows me. Has known me 10 years. But protocol is protocol. They had to ask questions. I answered calmly. Provided the timeline. Offered to bring in documents. Gave them my lawyer's number. They said they'd follow up. When I walked out, I didn't go home. I went to her gym. Not to cause a scene. To get a name. The name of the yoga instructor she'd been confiding in. Found him behind the front desk, sipping a smoothie. Looked about 28. Toned, tanned, and clueless. Hey, I said. You Logan? He blinked. Nah, man. I'm Trent. Of course he was. You know who I am? I asked. He paused. Swallowed hard. You're her husband, right? I nodded. Thought so. He stood up straighter. Look, whatever she told you, I cut him off. I don't care. Just tell me this. Did she ever mention me being violent? He hesitated. Then, slowly, he shook his head. No. Never. Said you were boring. That's all I needed. I walked out and smiled for the first time in weeks. Because now? Now I had witnesses point 2 days after she filed the HR complaint, I came home to find the living room rearranged. Furniture shifted. Family photos, my family, taken down from the shelf and replaced with generic canvas art she probably found online in some Cleanse Your Space blog. A diffuser buzzed quietly from the corner. Lavender. Her favorite weapon when she wanted to pretend peace while brewing war. She was seated on the couch, legs crossed, sipping wine in the middle of the day like it was Sunday brunch. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Just said, "I see you're still enjoying the luxury of my silence." I didn't answer. I was already past the point of letting her bait me into verbal sparring. That game was over. We were in the end game now. "I got a call from my lawyer today," she added casually, "about that little document you shoved under my nose." He laughed. "I bet he did," I said, taking off my jacket. "He'll stop laughing when the judge sees the texts." Her glass paused midair. "You wouldn't." "I already have." She put the glass down, suddenly interested. "You sent them?" "To your attorney, to the mediator, to the judge's clerk, and to Logan. Along with the hotel logs, the retreat bill, the text where you called me a rotting wallpaper of a man, and the one where you told Logan I deserved to be replaced without warning." Silence. She stared at me like I was something she didn't recognize anymore. Not a man. Not a threat. Just a version of me she had never met, the one that wasn't hers to manipulate. "You're sabotaging yourself," she said, cold and slow. "You think all this makes you the better person? You look bitter. Pathetic." "Honest," I said. "Maybe bitter. Maybe even broken. But honest. That's something you've never managed to be for more than 5 minutes." That hit hard. She didn't speak. Just sat there with that rattled silence, trying to recover her footing. Then, right on cue, the knock came. My brother. I'd asked him to stop by, bring a copy of the signed statement we'd written together, his account of her calling him, trying to turn him against me. He'd also brought printouts of my HR record. Clean. 10 years. 0 complaints. His idea, not mine. I handed the folder to her. She didn't touch it. "You're making this humiliating for both of us," she hissed. I stepped closer. "No, you're confusing accountability with humiliation." She stood. "You're doing all this to win." "No," I said. "You already lost. I'm just documenting it." Her face twisted then. Not rage, not sorrow. Pure disgust. She picked up her wine, downed what was left, and whispered, "Do you even hear yourself?" "I do," I said. Finally. That night, I moved her stuff into the guest room. Didn't ask. Didn't explain. Just carried her suitcase down the hall, opened the door, and dropped it inside. When she came up behind me, fuming, I didn't flinch. "You don't get to exile me in my own home." "Not your home," I said. "Not anymore." She didn't reply, just stared. Her mouth opened, then closed. Like the story she'd rehearsed didn't match the scene she walked into. For the first time, I think she saw the reality. No one believed her anymore. Not Logan. Not my family. Not my job. Not even herself. She waited until the final mediation meeting. That was her last move. She showed up late, intentionally, in some white blouse that looked like it belonged in a courtroom drama. Hair curled, makeup perfect, her smile just rehearsed enough to look accidental. She brought coffee. For the mediator. Not for me. She sat down, crossed her legs, and acted like we were about to finalize a business partnership, not dissolve 7 years of shared life and betrayal. The mediator started with pleasantries. Legal talk. Asset separation. Property evaluations. Things she never cared about before suddenly became urgent. That lamp was mine before the marriage. I think I should keep the patio furniture. It aligns more with my style. Then came the accounts. I watched her tense up when my lawyer passed over the printouts. "There seems to be a discrepancy," the mediator said, flipping the pages. "Multiple large withdrawals from the joint account during the period in question, all transferred to an undisclosed personal checking account." My lawyer calmly slid another document across the table. That account was opened 6 months ago. In her name. Without informing my client. She didn't blink. Didn't deny. Just said I was protecting myself. The mediator asked gently, "From what?" She smiled. From disappointment. There it was. The performance. She started weaving the monologue like a script she'd been dying to read aloud. I tried to talk to him. So many times. But he shuts down. I stopped recognizing the man I married. I felt unseen. Unheard. And then I met someone who reminded me I mattered. I didn't want it to go this far. But when someone feels invisible, they do things they're not proud of. I leaned forward. Just slightly. Calm. Do you remember what you texted Logan the night your mother was in the hospital? Her lips tightened. I looked at the mediator. I have the exact message if you need it. She stayed quiet. Just looked at me like she wanted to reach across the table and erase the entire version of me sitting in front of her. But that's the thing about truth, it doesn't go away just because you hate its face. The mediator took a breath. We're not here to assign emotional blame. We're here to agree on terms. So we did. I gave up a few things. Let her keep the car. Let her take the vacation fund, she'd already drained half of it anyway. Let her win some of the small stuff she clung to like it still meant something. Because I didn't care about things anymore. I cared about peace. I cared about clarity. When we stood to leave, she lingered near the doorway. You know, she said, you weren't always this cold. No, I said. I just used to be in love. She studied me. Then said, quietly, you'll regret this. I stepped past her. I already regret not doing it sooner. It's been 4 weeks now. She moved out. Took her diffuser, her vision boards, the coffee mug she once made me glue. Left behind the silence. The lies. The version of me that waited. I sleep better now. Not longer, just better. Like the weight on my chest turned to air. I talk to people more. I don't tell them everything, but I tell them enough. I'm not healed. But I'm honest. If you're reading this and wondering if you're crazy, you're not. If you feel the silence growing between you and someone you love, don't ignore it. And if someone ever tells you, worthless? Maybe. Honest? At least I never lied about who I am, walk away. Because they're warning you. They're not broken. They're just letting you know the damage is coming.